who will join us, who signed up, but we've got a great group here and really appreciate all of you making time during your lunch hour to share that time with us and to give us the opportunity to share with you what we've been up to in your region. We weren't sure when we put out this call exactly how many people we'd have join us. And I'm glad we have this size group because it'll give us plenty of opportunity to have discussion and to hear your questions. We want to be able to cover what you are most interested in and what you want to hear about. You know, I think that many of us spend much more time on Zoom than we ever thought we would have about this time last year. And even though that is the case because of the circumstances, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you in whatever way that I can. I definitely miss coming to Spring Island, which I've had the pleasure of doing fairly frequently since I came to the Conservation League as executive director in 2018. I'm hoping that better days are just over the horizon and that things will be different and I'll be able to get to Spring Island and see you in real life instead of squares on my computer screen. But anyway, here we are. And again, thank you so much for being here. Even though we're virtual, we welcome the opportunity to share some of the work that we've been doing in the southern part of our coastal region. Our South Coast team, Jessie White and Juliana Smith, whom I'm going to turn it over to here in a moment, have been really busy, diligently attending to what often seems like almost daily breakouts of some kind of issue that needs their attention. They've been giving those issues their attention, working long hours, building important relationships, and serving as ever vigilant watchdogs. To put a finer point on it, they have been on top of several urgent and important conservation issues in the Beaufort, Jasper, Colleton County area, fighting bad development proposals, supporting and encouraging good planning and the kind of development that we do want to see, and getting information to people in the community who care about these issues and want to make their voices known and make a difference in this place that we all love. And I also want to recognize that they've been doing this work under less than ideal conditions and doing that work with all of the professionalism and tenacity that the work requires. So here's our plan for the hour. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Jessie White, who is our South Coast Director, and Juliana Smith, who is our South Coast Project Manager. And they can tell you all about the great work that they've been doing and share some details with you on some things that they think that you're likely to be interested in knowing more about and care about. After they've done that, we'll stop and take any questions that you have or talk about other things that are on your mind that you want to hear more about. But before I turn it over to Jessie and Juliana, I just want to say how grateful I am for your support. None of the work that Jessie or Juliana or any of us at the Conservation League do would be possible without your support, and we appreciate it very much. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessie and Juliana.
Thank you so much, Laura. I just wanted to take a quick minute to officially introduce myself. I know I've emailed with a couple of you, but for the most part, this is really the first time I'm getting to meet you all. So I'm very excited to be here. And I believe the same is true for Juliana. So we're both very excited to be here with you all today and to talk to you a little bit, just a snapshot of some of the projects that we're working on in the South Coast. And I'm going to ask Juliana to pull up a little PowerPoint presentation that's going to go along with what we have to talk about. So what we're going to discuss is primarily focusing first on statewide initiatives with local impacts on Spring Island and elsewhere in the South Coast. And then we're going to talk a little bit more detailed about some projects nearby in Beaufort and Jasper County. And then we're going to wrap it up with a couple recent victories at the end. And as Laura said, we've set aside some time for questions and answers at the end, but also if you have questions while we're talking, please feel free to ask, and we're happy to just go as we can and kind of interact with you all as we're talking about our work. So can you pull up the next slide, Juliana? Okay, so first we're just going to talk about some of the initiatives we're working on across the state. And one of the first is a legislation that would essentially deregulate a process called pyrolysis. And essentially that's just the melting of plastic trash with a fancy word. And the process itself could take place currently under our regulations, our solid waste regulations in our state, but why there's a proposed legislation for this pyrolysis currently is because they're explicitly seeking to be deregulated and not be held to the standards under the Solid Waste Act. And at the same time, they're also asking to be able to increase the amount of waste that they keep on site, and they are seeking to avoid having to put up a bond. And the picture that you see in the top corner, right where the mouse is moving, is may look familiar to you all. That is the Able contracting site, known in news media as Trash Mountain or Trash Fire Mountain. That is a perfect example of what happens when we deregulate waste and allow for increased stockpiling. That pile eventually caught on fire and emitted a bunch of extremely noxious fumes, and really left the citizens of this state with a $4.5 billion bill to clean it up. And so by deregulating industries like that and not requiring them to set aside their own bond for the times when maybe things don't go exactly how they anticipate they will, then it leaves the taxpayers with the ones that have to foot the bill. And so it's a big fight that we're working on. It's going to be going to the full Senate committee hearing here in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to really need a lot of support to fight that back, especially because the pyrolysis company that wants to deregulate, it would really just open the state up to accepting a lot of out-of-state waste as well. And we know better. We've seen what happens when these sites are allowed to be subject to relaxed standards, and we just know better than to allow it to continue. So another statewide legislation that's more exciting and more of a proactive and positive piece of legislation is what we've referred to as the Green Space Bill. And that is an initiative that we were approached by Senator Tom Davis to help with. And he specifically asked us to help drafting the preamble language for the bill. And it essentially opens up conservation opportunities for coastal counties by allowing them to implement another penny tax in order to fund conservation, to purchase open space, purchase development rights, and other real property interests. And so we worked with the Beaufort Open Land Trust and conservation voters to draft some preamble language to support that legislation for Senator Davis. It is a priority legislation for him, and he pre-filed it, but as of right now, it has not gotten a committee hearing. So hopefully it will, but we've seen how programs that are funded through a penny sales tax program, like the Rural and Critical Lands program in Beaufort, have been successful. And so this just increases the opportunities for other coastal counties, like Jasper County, for instance, to take advantage of that opportunity and protect more green spaces. And the picture that's highlighted with the beautiful sunset is Widgeon Point, which was an example of property that was protected using rural and critical funding. So it would promote more of those types of outcomes.
There are also a couple of other initiatives happening at the State House that are beneficial to us here locally. And those are these bottom two images here. You can see complete streets is what this image is. This is a diagram we had drawn up to help explain what complete streets are. But it is essentially an engineering technique when we're handling transportation projects. So future roads and current roads that might need to be upgraded, that helps accommodate all users of roads. So those would be drivers, of course, but also bicyclists, pedestrians, people using public transportation. It helps them better navigate these roadways. It helps create an interconnected network of roadways, bringing people more access to our economic centers. It improves safety, and it also helps reduce a reliance on, single driver automobiles. So reducing traffic and congestion, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And the reason I'm talking about this with you all is because we have seen a broad interest in complete streets come out this year at our statewide level. So both the South Carolina Department of Transportation and elected officials are promoting, bringing and prioritizing complete streets to the very early stages of planning efforts for our transportation projects. And a part of this initiative also is going to require the Department of Transportation to incorporate local bike and pedestrian plans as well as transportation plans in their planning efforts. Right now, there's no requirement of that. So even if a local community has hashed out how they want to grow with their transportation network, SCDOT is not required to include it. But with these new initiatives coming out of the Department of Transportation and from our State House, those plans will be included. And this is really exciting because we've been working to promote complete streets for a very long time. But in the past year, we've been working with Beaufort County local bicycle advocates, Friends of the Spanish Moss Trail, to create a bike and pedestrian plan for the entirety of Beaufort County. It would create a bike ped network that connects the south side of the county, south of the Broad, and the north side of the county, north of the Broad, so that people can get around in multi-modes and maybe elect to use something other than a car to get from point A to point B. So we're very excited about that initiative and hopeful that we'll have that plan in action soon and we'll see more bike pedestrian infrastructure. Another image here, this is actually taken from last year. We all, before the pandemic set in, we all were able to go do a oyster build at Chutes Folly in the outside of Charleston, off of the peninsula there, to help build an oyster reef and help protect Chutes Folly, which is an important nesting area, from erosion. And the reason I'm talking about that is because another statewide initiative we've been working on with DNR, with local coastal Clemson extension offices, and with DHEC is to create a regulatory framework for this very type of activity called living shorelines. Living shorelines would allow homeowners to use oyster beds or to plant native marsh grasses to protect their properties from erosion. And this is nice because it gives a green infrastructure option to an issue that waterfront homeowners are going to continue facing. So instead of using bulkheads or ripraps, they are now able to use this soft green infrastructure. And it's got a dual benefit. One is that you can install living shorelines on your property to protect yourself and your property from flooding. But two is that you are restoring that lost habitat and restoring those lost ecosystem services that we rely on from our marshes to protect our watersheds. So filtration services from oysters, stormwater filtration from grasses. So these are very exciting initiatives that are happening. On a separate note, we also have a new colleague who has been funded by the a grant from the Pew Charitable Trust, and she is working on getting more oyster builds done throughout the state, and will be working on doing that here in Beaufort. So there will be volunteer opportunities, hopefully in the next year or so, to be able to do oyster builds here in Beaufort. So we'll keep you up to date on that. And I'm going to move now to a little more of a local flavor of stuff we've been doing here in Beaufort County, just highlighting some of the proactive measures we've been working on in lockstep with our county to better protect our habitats and better responsibly grow here in Beaufort County. So the first two I'm going to talk about actually come directly from the Ladies Island Plan. And you all on Spring Island might be wondering, how does the Ladies Island Plan benefit us here on Spring Island? Well, two of the initiatives coming from that are county-wide initiatives. That first top image right there, that was actually taken by our previous office director, Ricky Park, from her neighborhood in Mossy Oaks, flooding during one of our summer storm events. And I used that to highlight the fact that we are working to create a new zoning overlay called the Coastal Resilience Overlay. And what that will look like when it's put in practice is that anytime there is a real estate transaction in our low-lying areas in the county, there will be a disclosure agreement that must be signed and considered during that transaction, letting old property owners and new property owners alike know that in the 30-year life of a mortgage, or typical life of a mortgage, these properties are likely to flood at least once as a result of coastal flooding or hurricanes. It's a great educational tool. It'll help create more resilient homeowners so they know how to appropriately react to these things, and so that they're aware that these things are happening. So we're really excited about that. There's lots of buy-in from developers, from our real estate associations, and from our business chamber. So we're looking forward to seeing that hopefully in the next year. We're pushing it along. We also have been working at the same time to get a fill ordinance in, a fill dirt restriction ordinance. This image here is from the Walmart site on Ladies Island, which is what helped us get this Ladies Island plan, what kind of precipitated that plan. And the fill dirt restrictions will basically limit how much dirt you're allowed to bring in to build yourself up out of the floodplain. So this is going to help us more responsibly grow in those low-lying areas. So what it will do it will incentivize our builders to push their infrastructure to the higher portion of their parcels. It will also reduce our need to rely on dirt fill in these areas, which will help us better manage stormwater and prevent flooding from neighboring properties. And it will also reduce our reliance on sand mines to build up these properties and help maybe disincentivize creating new mines. These are issues that we face in the coastal plain. So we're excited to see these proactive, resilient measures coming out of that Ladies Island plan. And then last but not least, we had a major overhaul in our stormwater standards here in Beaufort County from the Southern Lowcountry Regional Board. It was a multi-jurisdictional and municipal effort that we've been advocating for and supporting along the way. And basically, we're creating more green-centric stormwater standards so that we better control how stormwater moves when we're developing. This will help prevent pollution from hitting our watersheds, the Port Royal Sound, into the May River. All of these places will benefit from fewer pollutants. And the way this is working is a prioritization of green infrastructure, a disincentivication of clear cutting. So prioritizing keeping your trees on your developing property so that they can better manage and naturally manage stormwater, and a prioritization of keeping our forested wetlands or our natural ecosystems that help control stormwater. So all of these very proactive things happening here in Beaufort County. And the really exciting thing about this stormwater ordinance is that it also will be adopted by Jasper County and Hardeeville. And this is super important because, as you all may be aware, there are a lot of development projects coming down the pipeline in Hardeeville. And I'm going to let Jessie highlight some of those for you all and what we're doing to help make sure they go well. So there we go.
Thank you, Juliana. Yes. So we see, I'm sure you all see every day the growth that's already happened in Jasper County, especially in the Hardeeville area. And And we know that there's a lot more that's been approved and not even developed yet. So, when we're looking at especially a map of Hardeeville legacy developments, there's really a lot there that kind of is representative of a sleeping giant with all those developments. There's, I believe, about 35,000 residential units that are either approved or and not yet built or are in the process of being built. And so, now that especially with RiverPort, which is one of the largest projects in the area, and it's both residential development, but it also has a significant commercial and industrial development component. And there's several tracks that are similar and really reach all the way down to the site for the location of the proposed Jasper Ocean Terminal, which Juliana is highlighting there and on the map. It's right on the river behind the Savannah, and from that point all the way north is basically charted up for commercial and industrial development to support that port development, and RiverPort is one of those. So essentially Hardeeville has eyed this as kind of an industrial corridor, and now that there are some stirrings going on, we're really trying to do what we can to get ahead of it. We are planting as many seeds as we can. Because it's still so early, we're really focusing on having as many conversations with elected officials. Senator Davis has been a champion of the port, and but also an ally of ours. And so we have a really good relationship with him, and we've been having discussions about ways to kind of proactively ensure that this really large scale development is not going to completely obliterate the landscape. And so what that means exactly is kind of yet to be determined, but things we're thinking about are, how to encourage, in addition to minimizing impacts to wetlands and other natural resources, how do we encourage there to be really like landscape scale mitigation opportunities that complement the impacts that may result from these development projects. Also looking at, as Juliana mentioned, the green infrastructure opportunities. We don't want to see, we know that a bunch of stormwater ponds don't work, especially as our sea levels are rising, that saline water is just rising up underneath. And so the ability for those ponds to actually store runoff is not working. And so we need to see more green infrastructure solutions. So that's one thing we're going to be ensuring that the city of Hardeeville does indeed adopt those revised stormwater design standards. But in addition to that, we're also working with Hardeeville, and I've had some really good initial conversations with the mayor about adopting urban growth boundaries for the city. And it wouldn't necessarily be able to stop some of the legacy developments that have already been approved, but it's still a really important tool, and it's something that will help rein in some of what we're seeing is really just rampant growth in that area. And so that is a little bit of good news amidst like what can sometimes feel very overwhelming when it comes to what's coming down the pipe in Jasper County. But in addition to the mayor and Senator Davis, I've also been in close contact with the Savannah Wildlife Refuge, talking to them. They're immediately adjacent to what would be this industrial corridor that Hardeeville is seeking to develop. And so how to get them involved in the conversation and speak out against permanent impacts to their very important refuge. So talking with them, we're also plugged into the permitting process on RiverPort. They have to apply for wetland permits for their development, and they are currently seeking public comment. So we're working with the Southern Environmental Law Center as well as the Savannah Riverkeeper in submitting comments, looking for opportunities to encourage them to do the right thing. And in addition, trying to hopefully have an opportunity to speak with the actual developers of RiverPort and some of these other large legacy developments. The mayor has indicated a willingness to put us in contact with some of these players, the developers, and just being able to sit at the table and explain our concerns and look for opportunities to minimize impacts, whether it's clustering development and in certain areas and then maximizing on what's remaining as open space. Those are types of conversations that we've had successfully with developers across the region. And so we're really pushing and advocating hard to do that here because we see it as one of the best opportunities to really ensure that the impact of these significant development projects are not, do not spill over and destroy the beautiful landscape that you see at the bottom, which is a forested wetland from the Savannah Wildlife Refuge. Also in Jasper County, we had a recent victory, which is very exciting. So over on the far corner, you see what is a wood pellet burning facility, and we refer to it as Jasper Pellets. We were we got a successful outcome in that case. So several years ago, we became aware of that facility, and it appeared to be operating out of compliance with the Clean Air Act. So we worked with the Southern Environmental Law Center as well as the Environmental Integrity Project to basically document our concerns with the facility and with DHEC, the state environmental agency, asking, basically for a demonstration that they were in fact complying with the Clean Air Act. And we went so far as to file a notice of an intent to sue, which is essentially what we needed to do in order to get action. And as a result of that notice letter, the facility voluntarily undertook testing to demonstrate that they were in compliance, and that was something that they hadn't done before. As a result of our involvement in our notice letter, we also were successful in getting DHEC alerted to this facility and actually pursued their own enforcement action against them on a violation of a state requirement. And that ultimately led to a fine being levied against the company, which is pretty rare for DHEC to do. So it really shows that they are taking it seriously. And the facility itself is on notice that people are watching, and they're now going to be held to a heightened scrutiny to ensure that going forward they do in fact get all the permits that they need. As of right now, we know that they have to apply for a federal Clean Air Act permit, and they have a year to do it. And so we will continue monitoring it. But in general, we are very happy about the fact that DHEC took action, and that as we didn't have to go to court in order to ensure that this facility was complying with the Clean Air Act. And it also gave us an opportunity to engage with some members and supporters in rural Jasper County, which we hadn't really connected with before. So all around, it was a really good project, and we're happy with the outcome.
Yeah, that we had so many positive outcomes with that. And then additionally, because of the awareness that people are watching this facility, they recently started working with the town of Ridgeland to reduce the amount of noise they've been creating. There have been lots and lots and lots of complaints from surrounding communities about how noisy this facility is, and very little has been done to change it. But because of our efforts and really heightening everyone's awareness about this facility, getting DHEC involved, making sure our community continues to stay engaged, they're going to work on reducing some of those quality of life impacts. So we're excited about that as well. But I'm going to move into one of our really most exciting victories from last year. And I know for me, it's something I'm very proud of, and I'm sure Jessie can relate to it, is the unanimous decision to deny the developers of Bay Point Island the permit they needed to build a resort on Bay Point. That is this image that you see right here. It is highlighting the now fallen homestead. This is the only building that was on Bay Point. It succumbed to erosion in November. It has since been removed from the beachfront, fortunately, and no longer threatens pollution to the water. But this was one of the many reasons why we were advocating against building a resort on this highly erosional island. And I just want to impress on all of you how important your support was in this. Last year, as you all know, was a very strange and difficult year. We were facing things we'd never faced before. We were not able to engage in our usual modes. We weren't able to go meet with people and have conversations with county staff, with elected officials, the way we normally do it because of the pandemic. So we really had to adapt quickly and rapidly. And because of y'all's support, we were able to access something we now all kind of take for granted, which is Zoom, the very platform we're on right now, to engage with our local community members and with our partners. We had 13 partner organizations in this effort. It took a lot of coordination to make sure we were moving in lockstep with one another and keeping the Bay Point story alive in the news, keeping it in front of our elected officials. Our most closest, that's bad grammar, but our closest partners were the Beaufort County Open Land Trust, the Port Royal Sound Foundation. We worked with Chris Marsh very closely at the Spring Island Trust. We worked with the Hilton Head Island Audubon and the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition and the South Carolina Environmental Law Project. These were really our brothers and sisters in this effort to make sure they were not allowed to build their resort on the island. And we used Zoom to meet with them. We also used it to hold webinars, to bring in people we hadn't typically been able to contact, to tell them about Bay Point. We got feedback from people who said that before our webinar, they supported the development. They didn't see anything wrong with an eco resort on Bay Point. But after seeing our webinars, they understood why it was a bad idea and we're going to advocate against it. We were also able to talk to small community groups in various areas throughout the county who were a little nervous about meeting in person, so we used Zoom to reach them as well. We also printed flyers, we got yard signs made, we got buttons made so that we could capture a broader audience, let them know about the issue and let them know when they could act. So really, really, really needed y'all's support to do that. We're so grateful for it. You should all pat yourselves on the back because honestly, I don't know that we could have done it without our supporting donors like you all. So thank you. And because of all those efforts, of course, like I said, the zoning board denied the permit that the developers need to build their resort. Now, of course, it's no surprise, the developers are appealing that decision. And so we are intervening in that appeal so that we can make sure the zoning board's decision, this really responsible, smart decision, is upheld in the courts. So the story's not over. We're still working to protect the island from development, but we really appreciate where we are so far and thank you for that help. And I think with all of that, that's kind of our skinny for what's going on here in the South Coast. There's lots of other things happening. So if we didn't cover something you're interested in, please feel free to ask us questions. And I'm gonna stop sharing the screen.
Hi, this is Dick Schmaltz. Thank you for your time and efforts. And you alluded to productivity with Zoom and virtual versus seeing these people face to face. I can't imagine the challenges you have about trying to be as effective as possible when you can't sit eye to eye. So here's my question. Can you bring us up to date on Whitehall? And can you talk to us with all this development about the water quality issue? As you know, way back when the league was very strong in knocking, not having that shopping center 278 because of the water runoff, etc. Can you talk about those two issues for us, please?
Nick, we're losing you. I think you might be far away from your mic.
I'm close for, okay. The two questions I had is quality of water with all the development in this area and Whitehall.
Yes,
Okay.
we can definitely answer those questions. And Jessie has been our lead on Whitehall, so I'll let her take that question and let you guys get a status update.
Yeah, so Whitehall is it's about a 20-acre property just at the base of the Woods Memorial Bridge in Beaufort, on the way technically Ladies Island, on the way out to St. Helena if you're driving the Sea Island Parkway. And so half of that property was rural and critical funding was used to purchase it for a passive park, and the other half was slated for development. And as of right now, there are conceptual plans for both the park and the development that have been approved. The development plans shifted over time, but the ones that have been approved most recently have a good mixture of uses, good connectivity, walkability, bikeability, and have really fit in better with the scale of the Ladies Island plan and the Civic Master Plan and the other governing planning documents for that area. So we were glad to see that happen, because some of the prior iterations of the development side of the Whitehall property were really inconsistent with the vision for that property in all of the planning documents, and instead would have just had big block apartment buildings. And so now it's been reduced in scale to really blend in better with the development and with the adjacent park. So both of those things have their conceptual approval, so they're moving through the process. There is an eagle's nest that has been located on Whitehall, which is pretty exciting. You can see them they have a perch tree that's right next to the side of the road, and they're visible almost every time I drive by. It's really, really fun to see. So they have a nest that's on the park side of the property, and DNR is aware. All the right agencies are flagged and alerted to it, and no development or land disturbing work is going to occur during the nesting season. So as of right now, I don't think there won't be any movement on the ground until the end of nesting season at the earliest, but because they're still they only have had their conceptual plans approved, they're not even at that stage yet. So we don't expect to see any real activity out there. And at the earliest, I would say probably 2022 at this rate.
Yeah, and as far as 278 goes, and of course 278 is going through Bluffton, and then there's the bridge upgrade. So there's lots of different things happening out in that area. But with the bridge upgrade, we know that they will be bringing their preferred alternative into a public hearing this spring is what's planned. There's been lots and lots of delays. Beaufort County and the Hilton Head Island Town Council have been working together to try and make sure that whatever alternative comes into that public hearing is the best possible one. They're getting outside consultants to review everything. Now, there are undoubtedly going to be impacts to our salt marshes out there. Where the bridges are now is not where the bridges are going to be, these new bridges. And so we have been working with SCDOT for a very long time, having meetings with Craig Wynn, who's a project manager for this, to really advocate for a more holistic mitigation effort at landscape scale versus using only mitigation bank efforts. That's something we are still harping on and hammering in and presenting suggestions for to get a better mitigation from that project. We're also working with the Stony community too, to make sure that whatever outcome happens here, that it's something that they are happy with. And I can say that SCDOT has done a pretty admirable job working with them and making sure that they are hearing their concerns. And we can't say that for all transportation projects the league works on. There's definitely ones up in Mount Pleasant where with the Phillips community where things could have been done better, but we're very fortunate here how they're doing things with the Stony community. Now, as far as the rest of 278 goes, you know, there's lots of development in Bluffton that impacts our watersheds and our water quality. And so that is one of the reasons we wanted to highlight the stormwater ordinance we talked about, because that really was an initiative that came out of Bluffton directly. They have their May River Action Plan, their Watershed Action Committee. Jessie actually just applied to be on that committee. So hopefully we will have a seat at that table like one of our predecessors, Reed, did for a long time. But they have been working really hard to change how we grow and develop and protect properties so that we can improve the quality for them for the May River, but it will impact all of our watersheds in Beaufort and in Jasper counties, that stormwater ordinance, because of how it's better controlling pollutants in our water, making sure they're filtered before they hit our watersheds with stormwater. So we're really excited about that initiative. But another thing that we highlighted, the green space deal, or not deal, the green space bill that Senator Davis has filed is going to be helpful in that as well. If we increase access to conservation opportunities in Jasper County along our Port Royal Sound as well, we are going to improve our water quality. And we've been working not just with Tom Davis on that, Senator Davis, but also with partners throughout. We've been working with the Beaufort County Open Land Trust. We have a Port Royal Sound Watershed Initiative, which is a loose title we've given ourselves to make sure we can coordinate protections with these big projects. So big projects like 278, we can point towards the collective land conservation community, can point towards high priority parcels in the Port Royal Sound watershed or other watersheds and make sure they're protected as a result of these necessary transportation upgrades. So I hope that answers your question. There's a lot of different things going on that can feel a little nebulous, but it's all working towards the goal of improving our water quality.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Hey, it's Tim Maloney. I had a question about the Jasper Port. Can you all hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. If I understood a news story that I saw the other day properly, the Jasper County now is in complete control of the land on which the port development would be situated. I think I have that right. So obviously that's a major hurdle cleared for this to proceed. And I'm grateful and gratified to hear of the you're already thinking ahead of what some of the environmental impacts would be for that. There's also an opportunity here, I think, done properly, and I know we'd have to partner with a lot of folks to do this, but done properly, there's a great opportunity to create jobs and to bring a measure of prosperity to what is an area that is just has tremendous, deep rural poverty. So, you know, not only might some of those folks be displaced in this effort, but I think there's an opportunity through required, you know, job training efforts that should be accompany this, to broadband expansion, various different avenues I think are possible to actually take advantage of this and to bring gainful employment and opportunities for a large number of people who right now I think are horribly stuck in a cycle of rural poverty. So not trying to complicate your lives, but it dawned on me that there's a positive opportunity out of this to really positively affect lives of a lot of people who haven't had that kind of opportunity up until now.
Tim, this is Laura. Thank you for that comment. It's funny, Jessie and I were talking about this very topic yesterday, and you know, the challenge for us as a conservation organization will be to continue to watchdog and work on minimizing environmental impacts and being part of designing the most environmentally sensitive development and minimizing that footprint while providing for, just as you're saying, opportunities for a better quality of life for people who live in that county and in that area.
Yeah, Laura, there's clearly not looking for mission creep here. It just, we've proven we can be great conveners of other interested parties. So using that platform that we have to bring other organizations to the table to, maybe promote some of these ideas, I think could be worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an important opportunity. Other questions?
Marty.
Julie?
Oh, hi. You mentioned Tom Davis and other local partners. Do you feel, I don't expect you to get political about this or name names, do you feel like that the local officials and the state officials you find are generally pretty receptive to your message and are willing to work with you on a lot of these issues? Because I feel the one thing that seems to continually unite us as a state is our environment and our water and our protection of our shoreline. And I'm just curious if my opinion reflects reality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I was just talking with one of our Charleston colleagues today, Betsy, who has really been at the forefront of this battle on the paralysis bill that Jessie talked about earlier. And she was saying how during the conversation and discussion about this bill in the full committee, which happened, I believe it was just last week, how elected officials were saying, the Conservation League doesn't show up for no reason. We really need to take into account their concerns. And that, I think that really speaks to the voice that we have and the reception that we get from our local and our state elected leaders. We had a lot of elected official buy-in with our efforts with Bay Point, which really helped oil the wheels a little bit in our efforts to make sure that that permit was denied. So I think you're right that there is a conservation mindedness throughout the state that kind of helps us achieve some of these goals, and we're very grateful for.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to follow up on that. I think the piggybacking on your question and comment, Tim, with Senator Davis, he's such a great example of this. He supports he's full support of the terminal, but he also understands, that we have to balance that development with sufficient open space and allow our natural systems to be able to breathe and to function properly. And so that, he prioritized pre-filing that green space bill. So he is one in particular that really does get it. And he understands that the economic development is important and that it makes for resilient communities, but so isn't the natural landscape that we're seeking to protect. They both have to exist together and in balance. And I think we're very fortunate to have elected officials that do get that. Not all of them, but especially in the South Coast, I do feel like we're very fortunate to have leaders like Senator Davis and others, Senator Campson and others that are just, even the governor, he was very supportive of our effort with Bay Point, but he when he was Attorney General wrote some pretty strong opinions as Attorney General that were protective of the environment. So I think that South Carolina is very unique in that way that we have environmental values that cross party lines.
Yeah, and we probably belabored answering your question, Julie, but I'll chime in anyway. I agree with what my colleagues have said, and we are grateful and appreciative that we have such a strong conservation and stewardship ethic in this state, and that definitely transcends politics. And it's not a but, and it is always important and a big part of the work that we do at the Conservation League is educating decision makers and policymakers on the importance of prioritizing the issues that we work on, because they're important for the environment and the quality of the resources, and those resources support the economy and the high quality of life that we want for all of our citizens in South Carolina. So I know that we're about to be out of time, but I want to make sure that anyone else who has a question has a chance to ask it or to share a comment. All right, Jessie or Juliana, any other closing comments before I wrap this up?
I just wanted to say thank you all again. As Juliana said, we couldn't do any of this work that we talked about without your support. And it was, especially in the past year, it's just really, it was so challenging, and we're so grateful to have active and engaged supporters like you all. So thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to spend this hour with you.
And I think we hope that someday soon we can all safely see each other again. I would much rather be where you guys are versus in my office all the time. So that would be great.
Thank you for setting this up for us. It's good.
Thank you for joining us. I'll just say before we depart that I think that it's clear that there's a lot going on, and it's clear that our South Coast team is not only hard at work, but passionate about what they do and love talking about it. We all love to talk about the work that we do. So you have given us a treat today to spend an hour talking about what we love. So just like I'm grateful to all of you and for your support, I am really grateful for Jessie and Juliana and the great work that they're doing. And we're looking forward to seeing you in person soon. Thanks, everyone.